Events are quickening, guys. Justin, President Trump's executive director of digital assets, says Bitcoin is digital gold and should be treated as such. Isn't that a fascinating statement? Well, it seems like they really want to accelerate toward the new financial system. Point number one. Point number two being what? Bitcoin is digital gold. And guess what? What XRP is? It's liquid gold, guys. Right? That can actually teleport instantly and provide liquidity. Now, Delphi Ventures brings XRP expertise to Trump's SEC crypto task force. Okay, so this is what they're being informed on. Key assumptions. We approached XRP with more of a utility token framework. We calculate long-term potential network value using the incremental value add XRP offers over other Ripple products. Our findings are based on calculating the aggregate incremental value of XRP needed to support the value of transactions its network facilitates, assuming adoption of Ripple continues to grow at a relatively rapid pace, right? And this is just one pathway, guys, to what Ripple is targeting: total global cross-border payments. Our assumptions: $155 trillion in 2018, growing 4% annually to eventually reach $230 trillion in 2028. Guess what? Now, starting at 0.54% in 2019 and eventually assuming Ripple is able to capture 80% of the global cross-border payments market, this assumes Ripple can capture about 80% of the global cross-border payments market within 10 years. Okay? So look at that. During this decade, guys, Ripple capturing about 80%. 80%, huh? Again, so the pie is large, right? The pie is most definitely large. And this was David Schwartz's vision from, I don't know, many years ago, back in 2013. Look at what he stated. Interview with David Schwartz. What is Ripple? Ripple is a financial matching engine unlike anything that has previously existed. For the first time, individuals, exchanges, payment systems, and merchants can be directly interconnected. That's a major shift in the status quo. Payment systems today are where email was in the early 80s. Every provider built their own system for their customers, and if people use different systems, they couldn't easily interact with each other. Ripple is designed to connect different payment systems together. Now, what will be the result of this new interconnectivity? What makes Ripple so unique and powerful is the way it harnesses the invisible hand of market forces. Wow. Invisible hand. We have seen that elsewhere. You know where? From BG. Can you give an example? What you see is a payment that just works. You have dollars, you want to pay someone in yen, and it just works. You spend dollars, they get yen. But what you don't see is that under the surface, someone else who was holding yen but wanted to hold dollars gets what they want too. What are your long-term hopes for Ripple? I hope Ripple will change the world for the better. I like to see big companies lose their control over the flow of other people's money, just as they have lost control over the flow of information. Wow. It's like a new revolutionary idea, guys, right? That's crazy. They want to chip away at the centralization of the current system right now and make it more decentralized, right? Instead of these governments and banks having total control over people's money. Same with exchanges. you view it as a liberating technology, Ripple will make it harder for repressive governments to use their control over their country's financial systems to repress their people. That happened in Canada, didn't it once, guys? With the truckers, right? And then they just blocked their money. Just as the internet has made it impossible for even the world's most repressive government to keep their people from reading Western media and blogging about conditions in their country, systems like Ripple could make it impossible for repressive governments to force their people to hold currencies those governments can devalue. Don't you guys see? Right? So Ripple isn't a bad entity, guys, as these Bitcoin maxis may seem to make Ripple. Which he was talking about the XRP ledger. Wow. Interesting. Brad Garlinghouse destroys Bitcoin in front of the IMF and Swiss National Bank, presenting the case for XRP. XRP was designed by engineers who recognize Bitcoin's flaws, especially around scalability. XRP is 1,000 times faster. And this is why the world will change. It already has, and it already is.
Because it requires capital to get it there. Our view in the future is you don't have to have this pre-funding, and instead you can use a digital asset to have global liquidity on demand. Now, we build upon a tech stack, an open source technology called XRP. XRP originally was built by some engineers who had seen some of the flaws of Bitcoin and the challenges of scalability around Bitcoin. Where Bitcoin today, per transaction basis, it's rather slow and rather expensive. XRP is very, very fast, about 1,000 times faster per transaction and 1,000 times cheaper per transaction. The other dynamic, of course, of correspondent banking is some of the more quote-unquote exotic currencies, exotic corridors have been left to kind of stand on their own. And the liquidity in digital assets could be applied to actually make that much more democratized and a level playing field. Ripple's vision from the beginning really has been to apply these technologies in the same way that TCP/IP and HTTP are the technologies underpinning the Internet of Information. These blockchain technologies will be the underpinnings of an Internet of Value, where we have connected devices, we have connected information that will allow payments to flow. And as Norman was describing, if you're a large corporation moving $100 million, that's one thing. If you're a freelancer working in the Philippines doing design work for a company in London and you want to get paid $30 or 30 pesos, Philippine pesos, that's not a transaction that can easily be enabled. And in fact, for the companies that enable that, they require the freelancer to set up an account and they don't actually pay it out until there's roughly 1,000 USD sitting in that account, and then they would pay it out.
Do you guys see back here? XRP is where? In the middle, guys. The heart of the system. Right? That's so beautiful to see. It's like a spider web. But XRP is the spider itself. Then over here, a 2014 paper published by Ripple affirms that as the XRP ledger gains widespread adoption, the demand for XRP is likely to rise, driving up its price. Right, look at this. Now, connecting the whole world together, right? How the Ripple protocol works. Fourth, since customers continue to interface directly with their bank to access Ripple, their customer and compliance requirements around customer interaction are already in place and can largely remain the same. Summary table of different messaging and transaction settlement protocols. Swift, centralized. Bitcoin, decentralized. Ripple, decentralized. Ripple consensus. Look at this. The speed is 3 to 6 seconds. Okay. Currency universal. Transaction cost, security cost. Partnerships are key. Ripple sits at the bottom of the payment stack. Right, so if you look at a pyramid, guys, right, and let's just call this the financial system. Ripple is at the bottom, right? It's targeting down here, because once you change this, then everything else will change, guys. It'll become much more smooth. And partnerships are key, like we stated before. Utility matters, but you know what matters more? Partnerships, or to the same degree. Providing settlement functionality to banks, money transmitters, and other financial services institutions. This approach stands in contrast to other peer-to-peer networks, most of which seek to disintermediate existing players. The role of XRP. XRP is the native currency of the Ripple protocol. It is a digital asset like Bitcoin though most users of Ripple will continue to use their existing local currencies. XRP plays a security function and assists with liquidity providing on the network. Over time, if the Ripple protocol becomes widely adopted, demand for XRP may increase, leading to an increase in price. Look at this. Unlike information protocols like the internet, investors can directly own a stake in Ripple. XRP, the value transport layer of the internet, which tells you and I that the average Joe, the average commoner, can become rich, right? At least hold a pie, a small slice of the pie towards this new world. Before you couldn't do that, right? With HTTP. Most of the world's payment systems will still operate on infrastructure that was designed in the 1950s. Recent technological innovations have made it possible to clear and settle transactions without involving a third-party agent. Look at this. Ripple provides a free, neutral, and global solution to move payments into the internet age, guys. Right? So the system will 100% change. It's just honestly a matter of time. Brad Garlinghouse confirming that focusing on payments has a huge upside, about $20 trillion for Ripple. Why? Brad Garlinghouse, October 8, 2019, page 33. One was a smart contracts platform called Codius using the XRP ledger. One could argue that we should have focused more on smart contracts and what happened with the Ethereum network. I don't regret that because he's thinking bigger. I think the payments, look, you have north of $20 trillion going cross-border each year. That's a great place to be when you're selling into that, right? So, and the thing is, this is just one path, right? Because they're targeting a lot of other areas as well, which tells us that Ripple wants to be the Amazon of this crypto industry, guys. And in due time, they will be, because they already are becoming that. Not financial advice. I mean, if you don't see it by now, I don't think you'll ever see it. But anyways, guys, hopefully you guys may see this. See ya.